Hello, this is the RPG Crawler, and welcome to another Indie Game Friday, where each week I take a look at an independent role-playing game. This time we're going to take a look at a local multiplayer roguelike called Crawl. Developed and published by Powerhoof, this game has been out in early access for a while, but it was officially released on April 11th, 2017. It is available on Steam and GOG.com at the normal price of $14.99 US. Crawl is at its core a roguelike action RPG-Lite with a very arcade retro feel, but its central premise sets it apart from the others. With the local multiplayer, or with computer-controlled bots, up to 4 players can challenge the dungeon. Only 1 player at a time controls the adventurer, however, with the other playing spirits that can activate traps, throw debris, summon minor monsters, or create and inhabit stronger ones. This makes for a sort of frantic competitive dynamic, where the players currently playing the spirits compete to be the one to bring the current adventurer down, so they can take their turn to be the adventurer and be the one to escape the dungeon. The story is, as usual, just enough to get the characters into action. The players are a dungeon crawling party that is on its last legs and have decided that there's only enough resources for one of them, so they go after one another. The survivor gets to continue onward, while the others are lost souls trying to prevent the survivor from escaping. There's more to it than that. But like so much in this game, the elements are a little bit randomized and honestly not that important. Each game consists of a round of dungeon crawling that takes approximately half an hour, depending on the group involved. This is split into adventurer or spirit modes. To begin a round, each player selects a profile, a control method, whether any bots are present, and the difficulty of the AI, and then a particular god to align with. The game has full controller support, and I really recommend it, but it can be played with a keyboard and mouse if you prefer. As stated, up to 4 players can play at once, though each will need their own inputs. The god you start aligned with gives you a particular bonus or power, may give you certain starting equipment, and determines which monster trees you start with. Each player gets 3 monster trees that they can utilize during the game when in spirit mode. At first, only a few such gods are available, but more will be unlocked as play proceeds. Once the game begins, there's a general melee until only one survives, and then said player begins to explore the dungeon. If you are the adventurer, you get a basic attack based on your weapon, and a special attack that defaults to a dodge roll, but may be replaced as you proceed. A basic ability score system is in place, including a life bar, experience points that can accrue to additional levels, and 3 main abilities. Strength affects damage, vitality affects total health, and agility affects your speed. The adventurer may also possess a selection of artifacts as they go through the dungeon, which can give them different abilities and bonuses automatically. The adventurer can gain experience by killing monsters, which are all provided by the other players in spirit mode, as well as gaining gold by breaking certain furniture, like chests. Gold can be used in shops to acquire new artifacts, new weapons, new spells to replace their initial dodge roll, and potions that will grant a bonus to one ability for a minor decrease of another. The dungeon itself is randomly constructed of pre-built rooms, including the shop room, other rooms filled with traps, and spawn points, corridors to connect them all, a boss gate that can be used once the adventurer reaches 10th level, and stairs downward. In a particular room, the adventurer may encounter traps, various furnishings, spawn points that can be used by the spirit players to create monsters, other interactable items, and possibly crystals. If a monster is in a room, or a crystal is present, the doors to the room will be closed until all the monsters and crystals have been destroyed. The crystals themselves are defenseless save for their hit points, but monsters, traps, and so forth are all controlled by the spirit players. When an adventurer is slain, they become a new spirit player, and the player of the spirit who killed them becomes the new adventurer. Each adventurer and spirit's abilities and resources are tracked separately, so if one character has been having a particularly good run, it's entirely possible that the new adventurer may be unable to cope with the dangers of the very room that they get into, so there's a good chance of a fairly rapid turnover the first time someone dies. In spirit mode, the spirits themselves can't affect the adventurer directly, but may inhabit furniture which can be either thrown at the adventurer or in some few instances activated for special actions. They may also release smaller minions to threaten the adventurer, inhabit traps and activate them, or activate a spawn point. The spawn point will craft one creature, which the spirit player then inhabits, and can engage the adventurer with a variety of different attacks. The creature created is selected at random from a particular spirit's creature tree. As the adventurer gains levels, this also grants the spirit player's wrath. Between levels, each player can use this wrath to upgrade any of the 3 creatures that they have available, selecting between 2 upgrades. Some of these upgrades are locked. Each of the upgrades may have different abilities and attacks, or may morph into an entirely different creature completely. Each tier of these creature trees takes more wrath to access, and each one can be maxed out in turn. It doesn't take much to max out one tree, but since the creatures you spawn in as are selected at random, it is often useful to balance advancement between the various creatures you have. Instead of gold, spirits can gather ectoplasm during play, which is used to spawn minor, independent monsters, usually some sort of slime. A few of these minions worth of ectoplasm can be gathered and saved, so that the multiple minions can be spawned during a particular room all at once if you desire. Once the adventurer hits level 10, they may attempt to engage the boss by activating the boss portal. This gives them one shot to attempt to battle their way out of their dungeon, past a complex, powerful creature. As in prior rooms, the spirit players can possess certain sections of the fight, often individual parts of that boss, and use them to attack the adventurer player. The particular boss being faced is selected randomly for a particular run, but doesn't usually change during that run, and it may only be attempted once per dungeon level. If the adventurer wins the battle, then they escape the dungeon and scores are tallied for that particular dungeon. If they fail, then they are returned to the dungeon and resume exploring. The third try in total on a particular boss is the last one, and failing 3 means that no one escapes the dungeon and dire consequences fall upon the one who failed. One last thing to mention is that after each run, a certain amount of overall experience is allocated, and certain actions can unlock further things, weapons, new creatures, new gods, etc. So, like many roguelike games, as you play it over and over again, the options in play become more and more complex. What this all means is that there's a couple different levels to the game. There's the initial multiplayer competitive game, which is very fun in and of itself, even with bots in the single player mode, and absolutely wonderful with local friends. This doesn't have quite the persistence of a true RPG, but even the RPG-Lite elements present make for a very amusing game. And then there's the persistent nature of the unlocks, which makes for a sense of long-term advancement. In play, you'll have to balance resources on both the spirit and adventurer modes, and ensure that you get your adventurer character ready to face the final boss faster than the other players, but with the recognition that failure can have consequences. So let's take a look at the graphics and sound. Graphically, it's one of those low-res pixel art games, and adopts a more arcade-style look, which admittedly is getting sort of old, but it's also very, very well done in this instance, with smoother animations than one might expect, and a lot of very stylistic graphic effects that take place. My only real complaint is that it can get a little bit busy considering how much information you have to look at, but overall this is one of the better examples of the excellent pixel art out there. The sound design is just as good, with excellent feedback cues, and a soundtrack that not only fits, but goes above and beyond to really set the mood for this game. There's a narrator through the tutorial and intro, and from time to time present elsewhere, and is done in a sort of style that recalls somewhat Darkest Dungeon, but perhaps even more over the top. My only comment there with the narration is that I honestly wish there was more of it. I would not have minded. I actually really enjoyed it. So, to sum up, Crawl is an excellent multiplayer experience, as well as a very worthwhile single-player experience. It has excellent graphics, a pretty solid roguelike unlock progression, adjustable difficulty with the bot AI, challenging combat, all with an art and music style that is a joy to experience. I'm going to have to give this one my full recommendations. With the $14.99 price tag, it is well worth the purchase, especially if you have some local friends to play the multiplayer with. It may have a little bit more action than RPG in it, but the RPG elements that are there are definitely deep enough to merit consideration in their own right. And I think I'm going to leave it at that. This has been the RPG Crawler with Indie Game Friday. If you like what you've seen, please leave a like, comment if you've got any feedback, and subscribe for more RPG content, both tabletop and computer related. If you're feeling generous and would like to assist me in continuing to bring reviews, let's plays, and other gaming content out, please consider supporting my Patreon at patreon.com/rpgcrawler or through the links at the end or in the description below. Until next time, take care and goodbye.